The Food and Drug Administration today announcing changes to labeling regulations around food dyes. This is part of their push to increase the use of non-petroleum based dyes within foods. And joining me to talk more about this announcement and more is the Commissioner of the FDA, Marty Makary. So talk to me about this change and what it is trying to achieve and sort of what the goal is for consumers.
Great. So the label "no artificial dyes" has really not been accurate in the past, and that's because of a regulatory failure at the FDA. It's not recognized the role of natural colorings. So we have natural ingredients that create a color, and those are from natural sources. Now, if those are included, you can use that label, "no artificial colors." The FDA also approved 2 additional natural dyes and from natural ingredients. And so it gives companies more options because we need cost-neutral alternatives to the artificial petroleum-based dyes that people don't want. And we took action within weeks of coming into office to remove all 9 petroleum-based dyes from the U.S. food supply. It's going very well. Within a matter of months, 40% of the food industry stepped up and said, yes, we're going to take a pledge to get rid of these. And so we're seeing more companies do it. Some have done it already very quickly.
Right.
Others, it'll take time in their manufacturing, but we want that labeling to be accurate so people can trust the label that says no artificial dyes.
As you mentioned, a lot of the industry has already stepped up and made these changes. Nestle, Conagra, a couple of the companies. It is a voluntary program up till now. Have you been in talks with more companies? How much are you communicating with them about the ones that haven't yet made the changes to make some of those changes?
Well, the FDA did take action to ban one of the artificial dyes, the one where there are the strongest health concerns from the medical community. And we believe you can win more bees with honey than fire. So we've asked them to do the right thing. The food companies are not bad. They did what the medical community and what society, including the government, asked them to do in the 50s and 60s, and that is to address food insecurity. But now that we've engineered chemicals to increase shelf life and we've created petroleum-based dyes that go in food now that don't appear in the food that the same companies make sent overseas to other countries. There's literally 2 versions of cereal, one for Canadian children and one for American children. We just asked American companies, can you serve the healthier version of your food for American kids?
As I said, it is a voluntary program. At some point, do you maybe make it not voluntary, make it more of a regulation that companies who are not participating will do so?
Yeah, so the voluntary removal is the best way to go, but we have made it very clear that we're going to use all the tools in the toolbox, including considering new evidence that certain individual artificial petroleum-based dyes are not good for your health. And they do, and that's for a couple of reasons. Doctors have described the inflammatory response. These are chemicals that do not appear in nature. And when they go down the GI tract, it creates an inflammatory response. And it's been associated with behavioral disorders, including an association with attention deficit disorder in a large randomized controlled trial published in BMJ. So we're going to listen to the medical community, and as they present more and more evidence, we will take the liberty and remove any dyes using our ban authority if we see fit.
Speaking of the medical community, I want to switch gears. I want to ask about the Expedited voucher program that you have put into effect, where basically drug approvals can come to market as quickly as 1 to 2 months instead of 10 to 12 months, which was the prior sort of fast track authorization. You've awarded 15 vouchers, I believe, so far as part of that program. But it is a somewhat controversial program. There are some concerns around the program, right? That maybe the process wouldn't seem as safe, or there are political considerations here. And I know that there's been concern externally, there's been concern internally, reportedly, at the FDA. How do you address those concerns?
Well, first of all, we've said very clearly that we're reducing idle time. There's a lot of idle time in the process. And look, I come from the clinical setting where when you break bad news to a patient, you think to yourself, is there anything out there that we can offer somebody, and can we offer it to them as fast as we can safely do it? So we're not cutting any corners on safety. It's been overwhelmingly received well by the drug development community. There are a couple people that don't want us to do it, but I think we live in very partisan times where anything we do, if we approve the cure for cancer, somebody would say, well, you did it too slow or too fast or something. If we can put aside the toxic polarization of social media, and affirming news, and ask, what do we really want with our FDA? What we want is the same thing: more cures and meaningful treatments for the American public. If we can cut idle time, that's a win. And let me give you a very specific example, Julie. Right now, when we came to the FDA, right now, we realized it took 60 days for the FDA just to confirm that your drug application was complete. Well, with new technology and AI, we can do that in 5 minutes. And we can also have a human review it as well. But these old archaic processes that were developed in the 50s and 60s, we have got to challenge these deeply held assumptions, because if you're somebody suffering from one of these conditions, it doesn't make sense why we have so much idle time in the process. So we're not farming the application out to as many offices, we're convening people, and we're getting a decision out as fast as we can safely do it. And at the same time, we've said we reserve the right to take longer if we feel that we need to take longer, and we have no problems doing that if that's needed.
Let's talk about the staffing at the FDA as regards to the expedited vouchers. Last year, you guys lost a significant amount of staff, both before you came on and then as you came on. But now I know you've said you guys are hiring. Were the cuts too deep in order to do this work that you are now talking about?
Well, the cuts were not to the scientific community. No scientific reviewer was laid off in the reduction in force. And we did not see an exodus once I came to the agency. We're actually just below the normal turnover rate for staff at the agency. So the FDA is strong, and it's going to continue to be strong. What we saw during the reduction in force is our IT personnel go from 1,500 to 700. The number of HR and procurement staff go from 2,000 to a couple hundred. And those were necessary cuts because if we're not nimble and efficient, we can't do our work well. We are now hiring 1,050 scientists at the FDA. The first 110 are in seats. Another 400 are hired and being onboarded. And we're going to keep going, building our scientific community, because we have a very aggressive reform agenda, and we want to make sure we have the capacity to do it well.
Once the drugs get approved, they have to then get made, and I know increasingly the administration wants it made in the United States. We've seen a lot of drug makers talk about bringing that manufacturing capacity to the U.S. The bottlenecks, I understand, are in some cases labor, highly skilled labor that's needed to make those drugs. What are you all doing at the FDA to help train these folks, or to help put programs in place, not just to build the buildings, but to help the workers learn how to do it?
Well, we have the best scientific workforce in the world, and much of the manufacturing process for the final product of a pharmaceutical product is increasingly automated right now, which is why you're seeing that labor cost differential get reduced between manufacturing overseas and in the US. And look, we're trying to undo the disaster created by 35 years of globalists moving manufacturing overseas for personal profit. And we've created powerful incentives through multiple mechanisms, and we are seeing manufacturing move back to the United States. At the FDA, we've said we'll put your application at the front of the line sometimes. We will inspect the facility in the United States.
But what about the personnel part of that? What about the labor part of that? Are you addressing that as well? I mean, I understand that some of it is getting automated now, but you still need people as part of the process.
Yeah, look, I don't run a university, but when I was at Johns Hopkins Medical School, the number of postgraduates and PhDs that we were producing were tremendous. And so they are looking for good jobs, and the question is, why are companies shifting those jobs overseas? We can bring them back, and our pre-check program now enables companies to build their manufacturing sites in the US and be ready to start producing on day one without having to wait an additional year or two for the FDA to inspect the facility. Those are the type of things that are resulting in this exodus of manufacturing back to the United States. We just approved an antibiotic, the only one of its kind that will be produced in the United States. It's almost as if we hadn't learned our lessons from the first year of the pandemic when we were shopping for medications and PPE overseas. This president believes very firmly in an America First agenda and bringing jobs back, and that's what we're seeing happening.
Commissioner Makary, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Julie. Good to be with you.